There comes a point when your understanding of the concepts you're learning gets better and better, but your own application of those concepts can feel far below your understanding, and it's a very frustrating place to be in. But something we can't avoid, because understanding something goes a lot quicker than the long experience it takes to really master those concepts. As you learn about art and you get immersed in art history and inspired by beautiful artwork, you start to develop taste and ideas about what you find pretty, what you want to do, what good art means for you. But that doesn't mean that you're able to do it yourself. And I think it is the most difficult thing when you're learning art and trying to improve. It's a feeling that came for me very strongly during the month of October. If it's your first time here, hello, my name is Julie. I started to study art online very seriously this year, and I'm sharing my journey with you in this channel. Today I want to talk about a feeling that I think a lot of you have, because I had it many times in my life. But it's been very strong in October as I was tackling projects that were different from the assignments that make most of my practice these days. And that's the frustration of not being able to make what I want, not knowing what process to follow or what results I can get with my mediums, having ideas and being completely clueless about what I'm doing and not being able to realize them the way I would like to. The images that I'm going to show you in this video were taken during the entire month of October, so you can see me going through some assignments and other projects as well, some of which I didn't finish, but that's part of the learning process. As artists, we tend to think of the time we put into a piece as an investment for that piece, and we want every minute we spend painting to count for a final piece that we'll be proud of. Maybe we want to sell it, we want to show it and get some kind of reward. But unfortunately, that's just not the way it works. Maybe some exceptional people are like that, but for me, in art and also in other areas of my life, most of my working time goes into projects that either I won't finish or I won't like in the end. And it can be very easy to perceive this as a waste of time, and sometimes I fall into that trap myself, especially when I had high expectations for a project, but I always try to remind myself that the process is what matters. There can be no time lost in art. I want to see every minute I spend holding a pencil or a brush and trying my best to create something as valuable time. The fact that most of it is spent on projects I may abandon or dislike doesn't matter, because ultimately that time spent is part of me. I learned something in the process, and that can never be taken away. I know that it's a bit cheesy to say that we always learn, and it doesn't help with the frustration you feel when you feel like you failed, because sometimes it's hard to articulate what you learned, but I really think that we always learn something from a drawing session, and maybe even more from a failed drawing or painting session than what we might perceive as a successful one. Sometimes it's a very simple thing, or just a reminder of something that we learned earlier. For example, for me, it's very often the fact that I shouldn't rush into my drawings. I tend to start drawings without giving them my full attention and my full concentration, and I expect them to turn out great, but usually they don't. And for me, making a drawing that I'm happy with takes a lot of effort and energy, and if I try to be lazy about it, it will be visible in my final drawing and I will regret it. When that happens, I try to be conscious of the lesson and bring it into my next drawing session. Other times it can be a completely unconscious lesson, and it's fine because I think drawing involves a lot of unconscious skills and processes. like for example, the pressure you put onto your paper, the way you move your arm, the sensory feedback of the texture of the paper or your canvas or even your screen if you're drawing digitally. All of that, each time you draw, gets recorded and processed in your brain, and it builds up as what we call experience. So that's basically the positive mindset that I try to keep, but in reality, on a day-to-day basis, I get extremely frustrated and upset. Sometimes I even feel a bit childish, to be honest. If I make a drawing that I'm really happy about, I feel very happy, very excited, very motivated, energetic, and it's a great feeling. It can last until I make a drawing that I'm not happy about, and then it's the opposite. It can really ruin my day, to be honest. I feel worthless and hopeless, and I start questioning all of my efforts and all I'm doing at the moment. That's why having that philosophy about learning is so important to me, almost a stoic approach to art, because I get so emotional on the surface that I need a very stable philosophy underneath to keep practicing, keep working on my art, and keep believing that something good will come out of that, and if it doesn't, at least I will have tried my best. For me, the month of October has been full of abundant projects. It was supposed to be a very busy month, and I didn't even intend to do Inktober, but I had a lot of things going on with my classes at New Masters Academy. When the month started, I was going through 2 self-paced classes, and I wanted to join 2 live classes. Started a thing called Figure Drawing Bootcamp. It's daily drawing exercises I do again as part of my New Masters Academy studies, and if you follow me on Instagram, I've shared some of that. If you don't, I'm juliemiette.art there, and you have a link in the description below if you want to see. On top of that, I had a big assignment due for the end of the month, and I also wanted to join a Master Mash challenge. It's kind of an Inktober thing with a daily prompt that we had on the New Masters Academy Discord again. And I realized that I probably would have to make choices because I can't do all of that, and I want to be very cautious not to burn out, because I know that I get very obsessed about things and I can get very excited and work very hard, but I'm also prone to burn out. So my first idea was to put aside my self-paced classes to be able to take part to all of the other exciting things that were going on this month. Challenges and live classes and so on. But the interesting thing is that I ended up doing exactly the opposite. One of the challenges I didn't mention was to design a Halloween costume, and I had an idea I liked of a butterfly costume, but I didn't know how to make it painting. I could probably have done something digitally, but ultimately I don't want digital to be my main medium, so I tried to make it into a watercolor painting. So I developed thumbnails, sketches, I looked for references, and I put together an underdrawing that I liked. Then I went a bit experimental with the background and I started painting. But this is when the frustration I was talking about at the beginning of the video kicked in. And it wasn't the first time that happened to me, but it's been very strong with this one. As I was about 70% done with it, I had learned so much from that painting that there were a lot of things I knew I would do differently and better if I started it over. All of these things accumulated during the painting process until I started to feel like spending any more time on it would be a waste, because I was already so unsatisfied about what I had done. So I decided to stop and give me a chance to do it properly by starting over if I felt inspired to do so, because just after the fact I was way too frustrated to even think about it. That would have been a big mistake to try to start over at that point with all of that frustration I had in me. So that didn't happen. Around the same time in October, I joined in live classes that I mentioned, and I had to draw a full themed still life, and it was just too much. I spent some time working on live classes assignments, but it didn't feel right. I felt sidetracked and I had to pause and think about my priorities. The classes I was doing were very interesting for sure, but I realized for me the question wasn't to know if they could bring me value, because they definitely could and they definitely still can, like many others, but rather to know if it was the best use of my time at that moment. And ultimately it felt better not taking part into the challenges and live classes and just concentrating on the self-paced classes I was on, working on my own path basically, rather than joining in the party, if that makes sense. So that's what I learned in October, and by the end of the month I basically abandoned all of the exciting things that I thought I would join when October started, and I felt way better doing so and doing my own thing than trying to be everywhere at once. And I really hope that it makes sense to you, and if you can relate to any of these things that I'm sharing with you, please tell me in the comments and let me know how you think about it and how you overcome it if you can, so we can speak about it, because I'm really sharing my journey here and I'm figuring things out as I go, but the day-to-day process of learning art can be a bit obscure and it's easy to feel lonely. That's why I think community and talking about it is so important. So let me know in the comments if that was helpful for you, or if you relate, or if you have any of the same issues that I had this month. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you liked any of the projects that I showed, I only showed little bits of it in this video, but I will make more detailed videos about them, so don't hesitate to subscribe if you want to see them. Thank you very much for watching, stay creative, and I will see you in the next one.